Using these likelihood functions to formulate the Bayes factor and using the prior probabilities from my first argument, we can now formulate a Bayesian argument from evil. This argument is going to argue on our total evidence and claim that evolutionary evils and the previous evils that I also mentioned are evidence for naturalism rather than theism, all things considered. In my first argument, I had mentioned classical theism faces problems of coherency, affecting its prior probability. Now I want to look at another a priori argument that further challenges its coherency. According to the argument from freedom, God's immutability is incompatible with perfect freedom. Premise S claims God is immutable or purely actual, and premise T claims whatever is purely actual is devoid of any potentialities. Therefore, conclusion U, God is devoid of any potentialities. It's also true by definition that V, a will devoid of any potentialities, is also devoid of any contingencies. Premise W, a will devoid of any contingencies, could not have done otherwise. Premise X, a will that could not have done otherwise, is not perfectly.
All right, you can stop it. Let me share my screen again for the present, so I can show his presentation, because I know they don't really do a good job of showing the presentation on the debate, so I have to do. Can you see it? There we go. So, okay, so I think one good way to reject W is that is assuming that's going to be assuming a view of free will. So there's two different views of free will. There's the could have done otherwise view, or the APA, the principle of alternative possibilities. But then there's also the source herd view. And so one good way to just reject this argument is to just hold to the source herd view to free will, which basically deny W, right? So basically, if you deny the principle of alternative possibilities and rather hold to the source herd view, then that means God would be motivated internally to act upon in a certain way, right? And so I'm not even on Trent's view of classical theism, I'm not really sure how this argument goes through if one rejects the principle of alternative possibilities. So that's the only response that I have, at least to this argument. Again, I don't necessarily hold to Trent's view of classical theism, but that's just one response that you could give, at least to this argument.